The night messenger. Have you ever woken in the darkness, your heart racing, your body drenched in the remnants of fear, wondering why your sleeping mind conjured such vivid terror? There is a moment, suspended between sleep and waking, where the nightmare clings to you like a shadow that refuses to dissolve. Most people dismiss these experiences as random firing of neurons, meaningless chaos produced by a sleeping brain. But what if that assumption is wrong? What if nightmares are not failures of the mind, but rather messengers sent from the deepest chambers of your consciousness, carrying information you need to understand? Welcome to an exploration of the language your inner self speaks when the world grows quiet and your defenses lower. This is not a journey designed to frighten you further, but rather to transform your relationship with fear itself. Before we begin this intimate conversation with your unconscious mind, I invite you to subscribe to the Relaxing Science channel, give this video a like, and share your location and the current time where you are right now. These small gestures help us continue bringing you content that honors both the science of the mind and the poetry of human experience. Close your eyes for a moment. Breathe slowly. In this space between consciousness and dream, something profound happens every single night. Your brain does not simply shut down. Instead, it enters a different mode of operation, one where the rules of waking logic dissolve, where emotions become vivid and real, where the symbolic language of the unconscious mind emerges from the depths. When these nighttime experiences carry darkness and fear, we call them nightmares, but they are never truly meaningless. The word nightmare itself carries ancient wisdom. In medieval times, people believed a creature called the mare, a supernatural being, would sit upon the chests of sleeping humans and create the sensation of being crushed and tormented. While we now understand the neuroscience differently, the intuition was not entirely wrong. Something does visit us in sleep. It is not an external demon, but rather the accumulated weight of emotions we have not fully processed, situations we have not fully acknowledged, and truths about ourselves that our waking mind resists. Think about the last nightmare you remember vividly. Perhaps you were falling through endless space, your stomach lurching with each descent. Perhaps you were being chased through corridors that twisted and shifted, unable to find an exit. Perhaps you experienced the sensation of drowning, water filling your lungs, panic overwhelming your body. Perhaps you saw a threatening figure, faceless or familiar, approaching with intent to harm. These are not random images. They are not the brain simply misfiring. They are expressions of something deeper, something your conscious mind may not be ready to articulate. The subconscious mind communicates through symbol and sensation rather than through logical language. When you are awake, your rational mind filters information, categorizes it, decides what is important and what can be ignored. This filtering mechanism is necessary for daily functioning, but it also means that many experiences and emotions get pushed aside, stored in the basement of your consciousness. They do not disappear. They accumulate. They wait for an opportunity to be heard. And when your rational mind finally quiets during sleep, these unexpressed feelings and unprocessed experiences find their voice. A nightmare is an invitation. It is your inner self saying, "Pay attention. Something here requires your awareness." The intensity of the fear is not a malfunction. It is a signal of importance. The vividness of the imagery is not random. It is the subconscious mind using the only language available to it, the language of symbol and sensation, to communicate what needs to be understood. When you can shift your perspective from seeing nightmares as enemies to seeing them as messengers, everything changes. This shift requires courage. It requires willingness to look at the things that frighten us, not to be controlled by them, but to understand what they are trying to teach us. It requires recognizing that fear itself is not the problem. Fear is information. Fear is the psyche's way of drawing attention to something that matters. The problem only arises when we ignore the message, when we suppress the fear, when we pretend the nightmare did not happen and try to move forward as if nothing significant occurred. Throughout this exploration, we will examine the different languages that nightmares speak. We will look at falling dreams and what they reveal about our sense of control and safety. We will explore being chased and understand what we might be avoiding. We will wade into water imagery, and discover what emotional overwhelm feels like when expressed through dream symbolism. We will confront death and understand that endings in nightmares often signal transformation rather than literal danger. We will examine the loss of bodily control and vulnerability. We will meet the shadow figures and learn to recognize them not as external threats, but as parts of ourselves we have rejected or denied. Most importantly, we will discover that nightmares, while uncomfortable, are not punishments. They are not signs of weakness or instability. They are not something to be ashamed of or to hide. They are natural expressions of a mind that is working, processing, attempting to integrate the complexity of human experience. Even the most psychologically healthy individuals have nightmares. Even the most spiritually developed people encounter fear in their dreams. This is not a flaw. This is evidence of a mind engaged in the essential work of self-understanding. The journey we are about to take together is one of gentle discovery. We will move slowly through these dark territories, but we will move with purpose. We will learn to extract meaning from terror. We will develop the capacity to listen to what our nightmares are trying to tell us, and in doing so, we will access a deeper level of self-knowledge, a more authentic understanding of who we truly are and what our psyche is attempting to communicate. Every nightmare you have ever experienced contains within it a gift. That gift may be wrapped in fear, may be delivered through disturbing imagery, may arrive in a form that your waking mind initially rejects. But the gift is there. It is waiting to be unwrapped. It is waiting for you to develop the skills and the courage to listen. This is the promise of this exploration. By the end of this journey, you will have a new relationship with your nightmares. You will understand them as part of your inner landscape, as teachers rather than tormentors, as voices that deserve to be heard. The night brings many gifts: the quiet, the stillness, the opportunity to rest. But it also brings the work of the unconscious mind, the processing of experience, the integration of emotion, the calling forth of what needs attention. Nightmares are part of this night work. They are not separate from the healing and growth that sleep provides. They are integral to it. They are the mind's way of ensuring that nothing important gets left behind, that nothing essential gets forgotten or suppressed indefinitely. As we move deeper into this exploration, remember that you are not alone in your nightmares. Billions of people across the world wake in the darkness, their hearts racing, their minds flooded with disturbing imagery. This is part of the shared human experience, and there is profound comfort in knowing that these experiences, while individual and personal, are also universal. They connect us to the long lineage of humans who have ever lived, all of whom have encountered their own nightmares, all of whom have grappled with fear in the darkness. Your nightmares matter. Your inner voice matters. The messages your unconscious mind is trying to deliver matter. And the time you take to listen to them, to understand them, to integrate their wisdom matters profoundly. This is the work we begin now. This is the conversation between your waking self and your dreaming self. A conversation that has the potential to transform not just your nights, but your days as well. Let us begin this intimate exploration together, moving gently, but with purpose, into the landscape of your inner world. The architecture of fear. The architecture of a nightmare is built upon a foundation of specific neurobiological processes that occur during sleep. Understanding the mechanics of how your brain creates these intense experiences can itself be calming, because it transforms the nightmare from something mysterious and threatening into something you can comprehend. There is power in knowledge. There is relief in understanding that what feels like chaos is actually a highly organized, purposeful process. Your brain cycles through different stages of sleep in a pattern that repeats throughout the night. The most significant stage for dreaming, and particularly for nightmares, is called REM sleep. REM stands for rapid eye movement, named for the distinctive characteristic that occurs during this stage. If you were to observe someone in REM sleep, you would see their eyes moving rapidly beneath closed eyelids, darting back and forth as if following the action of a vivid scene. This movement is not incidental. It correlates with the intense dream activity happening in the brain. During REM sleep, your brain becomes remarkably active. Brain imaging studies show that certain regions light up with activity that rivals waking consciousness. The visual cortex, the area responsible for processing images, becomes highly engaged. The limbic system, which generates emotions, becomes intensely active. The motor cortex, which controls movement, shows significant activation. Yet paradoxically, your voluntary muscles are essentially paralyzed. This is a protective mechanism called REM atonia. Your body cannot act out the movements your brain is envisioning. This is why you remain safely in bed, even when your dream self is running frantically or fighting desperately. A nightmare emerges when this already intense neurological activity becomes focused on fear-based content. The amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure deep in your brain that processes emotional significance and generates fear responses, becomes highly active during nightmares. The amygdala is exquisitely sensitive to threat. It evolved to keep our ancestors alive by triggering rapid, powerful responses to danger. In the waking world, this sensitivity is useful. It causes you to jump away from a snake in your path, to take shelter from the approaching storm, to feel caution in genuinely dangerous situations. But during REM sleep, the amygdala is activated without the normal filtering and reality checking that occurs when you are awake. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, rational analysis, and reality assessment, shows decreased activity during REM sleep. This is why dreams feel so real while you are experiencing them, even though they are filled with impossible elements. Your brain cannot question whether the scenario makes sense. It cannot evaluate the reality of the threat. It can only respond to the emotional content that the amygdala perceives. This creates a neurological state where fear becomes magnified, where threats seem absolutely real, where the emotional intensity is genuine even though the external situation is imaginary. Your heart rate increases, your breathing becomes rapid and shallow, your body may jerk involuntarily, stress hormones like adrenaline flood your system. All of this is happening while your body is essentially immobilized by REM atonia. You are experiencing the full physiological response to danger while being unable to move or escape. This is why nightmares feel so viscerally real, why they can leave you gasping and disoriented when you wake. The content of nightmares is not random, however. While the neurological state of REM sleep provides the stage, the actual imagery and emotional tone of the nightmare is influenced by what is happening in your waking life. Your brain does not generate nightmare content from nothing. It draws from your memories, your experiences, your current stresses, and your emotional preoccupations. The brain is essentially running a simulation, testing various scenarios, exploring potential threats, and processing emotional material. Think of it as your brain's way of rehearsing responses to challenging situations. Throughout the day, you encounter stressors, emotional challenges, situations that trigger anxiety or fear. These experiences are recorded in your memory. During REM sleep, your brain revisits this material. It creates scenarios, tests responses, explores what might happen if certain fears come to pass. The nightmare is a kind of simulation. It is your brain's attempt to process difficult material and prepare for potential challenges. This understanding reveals why nightmares often intensify during times of stress or transition. When you are facing a major life change, when you are grieving a loss, when you are navigating conflict in a relationship, when you are dealing with professional challenges, your brain has more material to process. The emotional intensity is higher. The stakes feel greater. So your dreams reflect this heightened emotional state. Nightmares become more frequent, more vivid, more disturbing. Your brain is working harder to process the increased emotional load. The architecture of fear in the nightmare is also shaped by neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers in the brain. During REM sleep, levels of serotonin and norepinephrine drop significantly. These are neurotransmitters associated with mood regulation and emotional stability. Their reduction during REM sleep contributes to the emotional intensity of dreams. Simultaneously, acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter associated with vivid imagery and emotional arousal, increases during REM sleep. This neurochemical shift creates the conditions for intense, emotionally charged dream experiences. The duration of REM periods also increases as the night progresses. The first REM period of the night might last only 10 to 15 minutes, but by the time you reach the final hours before waking, REM periods can last an hour or more. This is why nightmares are often most vivid and most memorable in the early morning hours. Your brain has spent the entire night processing material, and the final REM periods are longer, more intense, and more likely to contain elaborate, emotionally charged content. Yet there is something important to understand about this architecture of fear. The intensity of the nightmare is not a sign of pathology. It is not an indication that something is wrong with your brain. It is evidence that your brain is functioning exactly as it evolved to function. Your brain is doing the job it was designed to do, which is to process information, to simulate potential threats, to explore emotional material, and to integrate experience into your sense of self and your understanding of the world. The nightmare is uncomfortable. The fear is real. The physiological response is genuine. But the purpose is constructive. Your brain is working for you, not against you. It is attempting to help you process what needs processing. It is trying to get your attention about something that matters. The discomfort is the signal. The fear is the message. And when you can receive these signals with curiosity rather than rejection, when you can approach the nightmare as information rather than enemy, the entire relationship shifts. Understanding the neurobiology also helps explain why you cannot simply will away nightmares through positive thinking. You cannot logic yourself out of a nightmare while it is happening, because the logic centers of your brain are offline. You cannot calm yourself through reason during REM sleep, because the reason processing parts of your brain are not in charge. This is not a failure on your part. This is simply how the brain works during sleep. Accepting this reality, rather than fighting against it, is actually the first step toward developing a more skillful relationship with nightmares. The architecture of fear is complex, multi-layered, involving numerous brain structures and neurochemical processes all working in concert. But beneath the complexity lies an elegant design. Your brain is attempting to do important work. It is attempting to ensure that you do not ignore things that matter. It is attempting to help you process and integrate experience. It is attempting to prepare you for challenges. The nightmare, while uncomfortable, is part of this larger process of growth and integration. When you understand this, you can begin to appreciate even the most disturbing nightmare as evidence of a brain that cares deeply about your well-being, even when its methods are frightening. Unprocessed emotions as dream language. The subconscious mind does not think in words. It does not communicate through logical sentences or rational arguments. Instead, it speaks in the language of symbol, sensation, and emotional intensity. When you are awake, your conscious mind translates experience into language, categorizes it, decides what matters and what can be set aside. But vast amounts of emotional experience do not fit neatly into language. Many feelings are too complex, too contradictory, too threatening to be fully articulated in your waking state. These unprocessed emotions do not disappear when you push them away. They do not evaporate because you have decided not to think about them. They accumulate in the basement of your consciousness, waiting. They build pressure. They seek expression. And when your rational defenses lower during sleep, they find voice. The nightmare is often the primary language through which unprocessed emotions communicate. Consider a situation where you have experienced a significant disappointment or loss, but you have not fully allowed yourself to grieve. Perhaps you lost a job, and you have been moving forward practically handling logistics, presenting a composed exterior, telling yourself that you will be fine. The conscious mind has a plan. The conscious mind is managing. But the emotional truth of the loss has not been fully felt or integrated. This unprocessed grief does not disappear. It accumulates. And when you sleep, it may emerge as a nightmare where you are desperately searching for something you cannot find, or where you are falling into an abyss, or where you are being trapped and unable to escape. The nightmare is not about the literal situation. It is not about the job itself. It is about the emotional reality of loss, of instability, of things not being as they were. Your conscious mind has not articulated this emotional reality in clear terms, but your sleeping mind knows it. Your sleeping mind feels it with intensity, and it creates imagery that corresponds to that emotional truth. The nightmare becomes a translation of unprocessed emotion into sensory experience. Similarly, When you are in conflict with someone you care about, but you have not fully expressed your true feelings, those feelings do not simply vanish. You may have swallowed your anger to keep the peace. You may have suppressed your hurt to appear strong. You may have hidden your fear of abandonment behind a facade of indifference. But the feeling is still there. It is still active in your system, and it will emerge in your dreams. You might experience nightmares of confrontation, of being attacked, of betrayal, of being abandoned. These nightmares are your psyche's way of expressing what you have not allowed yourself to express while awake. The intensity of the emotion in the nightmare often corresponds directly to how much you have suppressed the feeling while awake. The more you have pushed down anger, the more terrifying and violent your nightmare confrontations might be. The more you have denied fear, the more overwhelming and inescapable the nightmare threat might feel. The more you have refused to acknowledge sadness, the more devastating the nightmare loss might be. Your sleeping mind amplifies the emotion to ensure that it cannot be ignored. It is attempting to force your conscious mind to finally acknowledge what has been denied. This is why nightmares can actually be valuable. They are not punishments. They are not attacks on your well-being. They are communications from a part of yourself that is desperate for you to pay attention to something important. The nightmare that wakes you in terror is often your deepest self saying, "This matters, this needs your attention. You cannot keep pushing this away." The discomfort of the nightmare is the discomfort of truth that has been suppressed, trying to force its way into awareness. When you have anxiety about something in your waking life, but you have not consciously acknowledged the anxiety, it will often appear in nightmares as a threat that feels vague, overwhelming, and inescapable. You might dream of a shadowy figure pursuing you, even though you cannot see the figure clearly or articulate what it wants. You might dream of being trapped in a space that is closing in, even though you cannot explain why the space is dangerous. This vagueness is actually diagnostic. It indicates that the emotion is present and active, but the specific content has not been consciously processed. The nightmare is trying to get you to notice the feeling and give it your full attention. Many people have nightmares about being unprepared for an important event. You are back in school and have not studied for an exam. You're about to give a presentation and have no materials prepared. You're going into a situation where everyone expects you to know something that you do not know. These nightmares often correlate with feelings of inadequacy or imposter syndrome that you may not have fully acknowledged in your waking life. Your conscious mind may be telling you that you are capable and prepared, but a deeper part of you harbors doubt, and that doubt emerges in the nightmare as a vivid expression of unreadiness. The language of dreams is the language of emotional truth. It bypasses the defenses and the narratives that your conscious mind has constructed. It refuses to accept the stories you tell yourself about being fine, about being strong, about not being bothered by things. Instead, it presents the emotional reality in stark, undeniable form. This is why nightmares can feel so much more real than waking experience. They are expressing something more fundamentally true than the surface narratives you maintain while awake. Understanding this transforms the way you relate to nightmares. Instead of seeing them as random disturbances or signs of dysfunction, you can see them as communications from a wiser part of yourself, a part that has access to emotional truths that your conscious mind has not yet fully integrated. The nightmare is not your enemy. It is an ally attempting to help you face what you have been avoiding. It is a voice within you that refuses to let important things be forgotten or suppressed. This is not to say that you should be grateful for nightmares in the moment. The experience of a nightmare is genuinely unpleasant. The fear is real. The disorientation upon waking is genuine. But you can, over time, develop a different relationship with the nightmare. You can learn to receive it as information rather than threat. You can begin to ask yourself, what emotion is this nightmare trying to communicate? What have I not allowed myself to feel while awake? What truth is trying to force its way into my awareness? When you begin asking these questions, the nightmare loses some of its power to disturb you. Not because the fear disappears, but because you have given it a purpose. You have recognized that the nightmare is attempting to serve you, even though its method is uncomfortable. You have acknowledged that your sleeping mind is trying to help, even though it is doing so through the language of fear and distress. And this recognition itself can be deeply calming. The falling sensation and loss of control. Falling is one of the most common nightmare experiences across all cultures and throughout human history. The sensation is unmistakable. You are suspended in space. There is nothing beneath you. Gravity is pulling you downward with inexorable force. The ground is approaching. You are powerless to stop the descent. You wake, gasping, your heart pounding, sometimes with a jerk of your body as if you have physically fallen. This nightmare is so universal that it appears in the mythology and folklore of virtually every human culture. And yet, the actual experience of falling during sleep is not a literal falling. It is the mind's way of expressing something far more psychological. When you dream of falling, you're experiencing the physical sensation in your nervous system. Your inner ear, which helps regulate balance and spatial orientation, is sending signals to your brain that create the sensation of movement through space. This is not imaginary. The sensation is real. Your body is genuinely responding as if you are falling. But the cause is not a literal fall. The cause is neurological. Your brain is generating the sensation, and the sensation is real, even though the external reality is that you are safely in bed. But why does your brain generate this particular sensation? Why does the nightmare of falling occur specifically during times of stress, transition, or loss of control in your waking life? The answer lies in the metaphorical accuracy of the sensation. Falling is a perfect physical metaphor for psychological experiences of losing control, losing stability, losing your footing in life. When you are facing a major transition, when your circumstances are changing in ways you did not choose, when you feel that things are spiraling beyond your capacity to manage them, your psyche expresses this through the sensation of falling. Consider a person who is going through a divorce. Their entire life structure is being dismantled. The relationship they built their life around is ending. The future they had planned is no longer going to unfold as expected. They are losing stability on multiple levels: emotional, financial, social. During this period, falling nightmares are extremely common. The nightmare is not predicting that they will literally fall. It is expressing the psychological reality of instability, of losing solid ground, of having your foundation pulled out from beneath you. Similarly, someone who is facing job loss, or who is dealing with serious health concerns, or who is navigating a major life transition, will often experience falling dreams. The nightmare is not random. It is precisely calibrated to the emotional reality of the situation. The sensation of falling perfectly matches the feeling of losing control, of circumstances changing beyond your ability to manage them, of things spinning in directions you cannot predict or prevent. The fear in the falling nightmare is also highly informative. The terror you experience while falling often corresponds to how much you are resisting the changes in your life, how much you are clinging to the illusion of control, how much you are trying to maintain the status quo, even as circumstances shift inevitably. The person who is most terrified by falling dreams is often the person who is most desperately trying to maintain control in their waking life, who is most invested in things staying exactly as they are. This suggests that the falling nightmare is not a sign of weakness or instability. It is a sign that you are facing something real, something significant, something that is genuinely shifting in your life. The nightmare is your psyche's way of processing this reality. It is helping you feel the emotional truth of what is happening, even as your conscious mind tries to maintain composure and control. The nightmare is doing important work. It is helping you acknowledge what is real, even when that reality is uncomfortable. There is also a particular kind of falling nightmare that relates specifically to powerlessness and loss of agency. Some people dream of falling down an endless staircase, or of falling through multiple floors of a building, or of falling into a chasm that has no bottom. These variations on the falling dream often correspond to situations where you feel that you have lost agency, that you are no longer in control of your own life, that circumstances are dictating your path rather than you directing your own course. If you have been in a situation where you had to make a decision that was forced upon you, where you chose the lesser of two bad options rather than choosing what you actually wanted, your dreams may reflect this loss of agency through the sensation of falling. If you have been in a relationship where your needs and preferences were not honored, where you had to suppress your own desires to keep the peace, your dreams may express this powerlessness through the nightmare of helpless descent. Understanding this, you can ask yourself when you experience a falling nightmare, what in my waking life feels out of control? What am I resisting? Where have I lost my footing? Where am I clinging to stability that is no longer stable? These questions can help you identify what the nightmare is trying to communicate. The falling sensation is not meant to harm you. It is meant to alert you. It is meant to help you recognize that something needs your attention, that something in your life requires you to adapt, to let go of control, to accept the reality of change. Many people find that when they stop resisting change, when they accept the transitions that are happening in their lives, when they loosen their grip on the need to control everything, the falling nightmares decrease. This is not a coincidence. The nightmare was expressing the psychological reality of resistance. Once the resistance begins to ease, once you begin to accept what is happening, the nightmare has less material to work with. The psyche no longer needs to use the falling sensation to force you to acknowledge what you are trying to deny. In this way, the falling nightmare can become a teacher. It can help you recognize where you are out of alignment with reality, where you are clinging to control that is illusory, where you are resisting changes that are inevitable. When you can receive this teaching, when you can listen to what the nightmare is attempting to communicate about loss of control and the need to adapt, the falling dream becomes less a source of terror and more a source of wisdom. Being chased, the avoidance pattern. The nightmare of being chased is perhaps even more common than the nightmare of falling. You are running. Behind you, there is something pursuing you, something threatening, something that you are desperate to escape. Your legs feel heavy as if you are running through water or through thick mud. Your speed is inadequate. The pursuer is getting closer. No matter how hard you run, you cannot seem to escape. You are trapped in a pattern of desperate flight with no possibility of escape. And then you wake, your body tense, your breathing rapid, the residue of fear clinging to you. The being chased nightmare is almost never about literal pursuit. There is no actual predator hunting you down. The nightmare is not a prediction of danger. Instead, it is an expression of something you are avoiding in your waking life. The thing chasing you in the dream is a metaphor. It represents something you do not want to face, something you are running from, something you are hoping to escape by ignoring it or by moving away from it. What are you running from? This is the essential question the nightmare invites you to ask. The answer is rarely something external. It is something internal. It is often a truth about yourself that you do not want to acknowledge. It is an emotion you do not want to feel. It is a decision you do not want to make. It is a change you do not want to accept. It is a responsibility you do not want to take on. It is a part of yourself that you do not want to see. Consider someone who is in a job that is not fulfilling them, that is slowly draining their energy and their sense of purpose, but they have not allowed themselves to fully acknowledge this reality. They keep telling themselves that the job is fine, that they should be grateful to have employment, that they do not have the luxury of being picky, but a part of them knows the truth. They know they are unhappy. They know they are not using their talents or pursuing their true interests. During this time, they may experience nightmares of being chased. The pursuer represents the truth they are avoiding, the reality that they need to make a change, that they cannot stay in this situation indefinitely. Or consider someone who is in a relationship that is not working, but they have not allowed themselves to fully acknowledge this. They tell themselves that they should work harder to make it work, that the problems are not that serious, that they are being too demanding or too critical. But somewhere inside, they know the relationship is not sustainable. During this time, being chased nightmares may intensify. The pursuer represents the truth they are avoiding, the reality that they need to make a difficult decision, that they cannot indefinitely pretend that everything is fine. The being chased nightmare often intensifies in proportion to how much you are avoiding what needs to be faced. The more you run from the truth, the more urgent and terrifying the nightmare becomes. The more you try to outpace the reality that is pursuing you, the more vivid and disturbing your dreams become. The nightmare is attempting to exhaust you, to wear down your resistance, to force you to finally stop running and turn around to face what is behind you. This is why the being chased nightmare, while terrifying, can actually be a gift. It is a sign that you are avoiding something important. It is a signal that you cannot run forever, that eventually you will have to stop and face what is pursuing you. The nightmare is trying to help you recognize this reality while you still have time to make choices about how to handle it. The longer you run, the more desperate the nightmare becomes. The nightmare is your psyche's way of saying, stop running, turn around, face this, you cannot escape it. What makes the being chased nightmare so powerful is the helplessness it conveys. You are running, but you are not getting away. Your efforts are futile. This helplessness is diagnostic. It suggests that the thing you are avoiding cannot actually be escaped through avoidance. No matter how hard you try to ignore it, no matter how far you try to run from it, it will continue to pursue you. The only way out is to stop running. The only way to end the nightmare is to turn and face what is behind you. Many people find that when they finally stop avoiding something, when they finally make the decision they have been dreading, when they finally face the truth they have been running from, the being chased nightmares stop. This is not magic. This is the psyche recognizing that the avoidance is no longer necessary. The thing you were running from has been faced. The decision has been made. The truth has been acknowledged. The nightmare has served its purpose, and it releases you. But before you reach that point, the nightmare will continue. It will grow more intense if necessary. It will do whatever it can to get your attention, to help you recognize that you cannot run forever, that at some point you must turn and face what you have been avoiding. The nightmare is not your enemy. It is an alarm system. It is telling you that something requires your immediate attention, that you are spending your energy in a futile direction, that the only path forward is through facing what frightens you, not through escaping it. The being chased nightmare can also reveal something about your relationship with your own instincts and intuition. If there is something in your life that does not feel right, something that your gut is telling you needs attention, but you have been ignoring these inner signals, the nightmare may intensify. Your unconscious mind is attempting to get your conscious mind to listen to what your intuition is already telling you. The pursuer is not an external threat. It is your own inner wisdom attempting to catch your attention. Water, drowning, and emotional overwhelm. Water appears in dreams with remarkable frequency, and water-related nightmares carry particular significance. Water in dreams often symbolizes emotion, the unconscious mind, the depths of feeling that lie beneath the surface of conscious awareness. When water becomes threatening in a nightmare, when you are drowning, when you are being submerged, when you are struggling to keep your head above the surface, the nightmare is expressing something about emotional overwhelm, about feelings that are too intense to manage, about being submerged in emotion to the point where you cannot breathe. Drowning nightmares are particularly common for people who are dealing with emotional intensity that they have not fully processed or expressed. Perhaps you have experienced a significant loss. Perhaps you are dealing with grief that feels too large to contain. Perhaps you are in a situation that is generating intense fear or anxiety, and you have not allowed yourself to fully feel these emotions while awake. The emotions accumulate, building pressure, and the nightmare expresses this through the sensation of drowning, of water filling your lungs, of being unable to breathe, of struggling desperately for air. The sensation of drowning is the sensation of being overwhelmed by emotion. Your conscious mind may be trying to maintain control, trying to appear strong, trying not to burden others with your feelings, but the emotional reality is that you are overwhelmed. You are struggling. You are drowning in feelings that you have not allowed yourself to fully experience. The nightmare brings this reality to the surface. It forces you to feel, in the dream state, what you have been suppressing while awake. Water can also represent the unconscious mind itself. When you are drowning in a nightmare, you are being submerged in the unconscious. You are being pulled under by forces you do not fully understand or control. This can correlate with experiences of losing your psychological footing, of feeling that things are spiraling beyond your ability to manage them, of having the foundations of your understanding or your life shifted by events beyond your control. Some people experience nightmares of being in deep water, unable to see the bottom, unable to touch solid ground. These nightmares often express a feeling of being lost, of not having a solid foundation, of being adrift in uncertainty. If you are in a period of major life uncertainty, if you are facing decisions without clear guidance, if you are navigating situations where you do not know what the right choice is, these nightmares may emerge. The water represents the uncertainty, The depth represents the magnitude of the unknowing. Other people experience nightmares of tidal waves or tsunamis, of being overwhelmed by a massive force of water that you cannot control or escape. These nightmares often correlate with situations where emotion is building with force, where you sense that something is coming that will overwhelm you, where you are bracing for an emotional impact that you feel powerless to prevent. The tidal wave is the emotion that is building, the wave of feeling that you sense is coming, that you know will submerge you. The key to understanding water-related nightmares is recognizing that they are about emotional reality, not literal danger. You are not actually drowning. But emotionally, psychologically, you may feel as though you are drowning. You may feel as though you are being submerged in feelings that are too intense, too overwhelming, too much to manage. The nightmare is bringing this emotional reality into vivid, undeniable form. When you experience a drowning nightmare, you can ask yourself, what emotions am I not allowing myself to feel? Where in my life do I feel overwhelmed? What feelings am I trying to suppress or control? What emotional reality am I not acknowledging? These questions can help you identify what the nightmare is trying to communicate. The drowning sensation is not meant to harm you. It is meant to alert you to emotional material that needs your attention and your compassion. Many people find that when they begin to allow themselves to feel the emotions they have been suppressing, when they acknowledge the grief or the fear or the overwhelm that they have been trying to control, the drowning nightmares decrease. This is not because the emotions disappear. It is because you have stopped resisting them. You have stopped trying to hold them down, to suppress them, to keep them from overwhelming you. You have allowed yourself to feel them in a conscious, intentional way rather than having them erupt in your dreams. There is a paradox here that is worth understanding. The more you try to suppress emotion, the more likely you are to experience drowning nightmares. The more you resist the emotional reality, the more overwhelming it becomes in your unconscious. But when you finally allow yourself to feel the emotion, when you acknowledge the grief or the fear or the overwhelm, the nightmare often releases its grip. You have given the emotion the recognition and the space it needs. You have stopped fighting it. And in that cessation of struggle, you find that you are not actually drowning. You are floating. You are being held by the water. You are able to move through the emotion rather than being destroyed by it. This is the teaching that water nightmares offer. They are invitations to stop struggling against emotion, to stop trying to control feelings, to allow yourself to be moved by what you feel without being destroyed by it. The water is not your enemy. The drowning sensation is the result of your resistance to the water, not the result of the water itself. When you stop struggling, when you allow yourself to feel what you feel, the water becomes something you can move through, something that can carry you, something that connects you to the depths of your own being. Death and transformation. Dreams. Death appears frequently in nightmares, and it carries some of the most intense fear that any dream image can generate. You dream of your own death or of the death of someone you love. The nightmare is vivid, emotionally overwhelming, and upon waking you may feel a profound sense of dread or loss. Many people who experience death nightmares worry that the nightmare is somehow predictive, that it is a sign that death is coming, that the nightmare is a warning of literal danger. But this interpretation is almost always incorrect. Death in nightmares is not literal. Death in dreams is almost always metaphorical. Death in dreams represents transformation, ending, transition, the death of what was, so that something new can be born. When you are in a period of major life change, when something significant is ending in your life, when you are moving away from an old identity or an old way of being, death imagery often appears in dreams. The nightmare is not predicting literal death, it is expressing the psychological reality of what is dying, what is ending, what is being released. Consider someone who is going through a major career transition, moving away from a long-held profession to pursue something entirely different. They are leaving behind an identity that they have held for years. They are releasing a way of being that was familiar and known. During this transition, they may experience nightmares of death. The nightmare is not predicting that they will literally die. It is expressing the death of the old identity, the ending of the old way of being. The nightmare is helping them feel and process the loss that is inherent in any major transition. Similarly, someone who is going through a significant personal transformation, who is releasing patterns or beliefs or ways of behaving that have defined them for years, may experience death nightmares. The nightmare is not predicting harm. It is expressing the psychological reality of what is dying within them. The person they were is, in a sense, dying. A new person is being born. The nightmare is the psyche's way of honoring the significance of this transformation, of helping you feel the weight of what is being released. Death nightmares can also appear when you are in a period of grief. You have lost someone important. You are in the process of integrating this loss into your sense of self and your understanding of the world. During this time, nightmares involving death are common. The nightmare is helping you process the loss. It is helping you feel the reality of what has happened. It is helping you integrate the death into your ongoing life. What is important to understand is that death in nightmares, while frightening, is not pathological. It is not a sign of depression or suicidality. It is a sign that you are undergoing significant transformation. It is a sign that something in your life is genuinely ending. The nightmare is not trying to harm you. It is trying to help you acknowledge and process what is real. There is also a particular quality to death nightmares that is worth exploring. Sometimes the death that occurs in the nightmare feels necessary, almost inevitable. You know in the dream that this death must happen, that it is part of a larger process, that something new cannot be born until the old dies. This kind of death nightmare, while still frightening, carries a different energy than a nightmare, where death feels like random violence or meaningless loss. The fear in a death nightmare often comes from resistance to the ending that is happening. The more you are clinging to what is dying, the more you are trying to prevent the necessary ending, the more terrifying the nightmare becomes. But when you can accept the ending, when you can acknowledge that something needs to die so that something new can be born, the nightmare often loses some of its terror. Many spiritual and psychological traditions recognize that death is necessary for transformation. You cannot become something new while you are still clinging to who you were. You cannot grow into a new identity while you are still holding tight to an old one. You cannot move forward while you are anchored in the past. The death nightmare is the psyche's way of helping you process and accept these necessary endings. When you experience a death nightmare, you can ask yourself, what is ending in my life? What identity or way of being am I releasing? What is dying so that something new can be born? What transformation am I undergoing? These questions can help you understand what the nightmare is communicating. The nightmare is not a curse, it is a teacher. It is helping you move through necessary transformation with greater awareness and intention. Teeth falling, losing control of the body. Teeth falling out is one of the most common and most disturbing nightmare images. Your teeth crumble or fall out. They come loose and you can feel them shifting in your mouth. You spit them out into your hand. The sensation is vivid and deeply unsettling. Many people have experienced this nightmare at some point in their lives, and the nightmare often recurs periodically, especially during times of stress or anxiety. The teeth falling nightmare is almost universally connected to feelings of powerlessness, loss of control, anxiety about aging, or concerns about your ability to maintain your appearance or your competence. Teeth are visible to others. They are central to how you present yourself. They are something you depend on for basic functioning, for eating, for speaking clearly, for smiling. When teeth fall out in a nightmare, the nightmare is expressing anxieties about losing your power, losing your ability to function, losing control of your body or your appearance. Teeth-falling nightmares often correlate with situations where you feel that you are losing control of something important. Perhaps you are dealing with a health concern that is making you feel vulnerable or out of control. Perhaps you are aging and feeling anxious about how that aging is changing your appearance or your capabilities. Perhaps you are in a situation where you feel powerless, where things are happening to you rather than you directing your own course. The teeth-falling nightmare expresses this loss of control through the visceral experience of your body literally falling apart. There is also a particular anxiety that teeth-falling nightmares can express about your ability to be heard, to communicate effectively, to maintain your social presence. Teeth are central to your ability to speak clearly and to smile. When teeth fall out, the nightmare is expressing anxiety about losing your voice, about becoming invisible, about no longer being able to communicate effectively or to maintain your social presence. More broadly, teeth-falling nightmares are part of a larger category of nightmares about losing control of your body, about your body betraying you, about physical disintegration. These nightmares can also include dreams of hair falling out, of your skin rotting, of your body becoming grotesque or disfigured, of physical deterioration. All of these nightmares express anxieties about bodily autonomy, about aging, about the fragility of the physical form. When you experience a nightmare about losing control of your body, you can ask yourself, where in my waking life do I feel that I am losing control? What aspects of myself am I anxious about? Where am I feeling vulnerable or powerless? Am I anxious about aging or about changes in my appearance or my physical capabilities? These questions can help you identify what the nightmare is trying to communicate. It is also worth noting that teeth-falling nightmares often intensify during times of significant stress or during periods when you are grinding your teeth at night. The physical sensation of tooth stress can contribute to the nightmare content. Your body is experiencing actual stress in the teeth and jaw area, and your mind incorporates this sensation into the nightmare. The nightmare is expressing both the physical stress and the psychological stress that is causing the physical tension. When people reduce stress in their waking lives, when they address the underlying anxiety or powerlessness that the nightmare is expressing, teeth-falling nightmares often decrease. This is not because the anxiety disappears entirely, but because you have reduced the overall stress load and the underlying sense of powerlessness that the nightmare is expressing. The shadow self. Confronting dark figures. One of the most profound types of nightmare involves a threatening figure, often dark or shadowy, sometimes faceless, sometimes with malevolent intent. You encounter this figure and feel overwhelming fear. The figure may be pursuing you, may be attacking you, may be watching you with hostile intent. Upon waking, you may feel that you have encountered something genuinely evil or malevolent. But the truth is more complex and more psychologically rich. The threatening figure in a nightmare often represents what psychologists call the shadow self, the parts of yourself that you have rejected, denied, or refused to acknowledge. The shadow is not inherently evil. It is simply the collection of impulses, desires, emotions, and qualities that your conscious self has decided are unacceptable. You have pushed these things down, denied them, refused to integrate them into your sense of self, and they accumulate in the unconscious, waiting for an opportunity to be recognized. When you encounter a dark or threatening figure in a nightmare, you are often encountering this shadow self, these disowned parts of yourself. The figure feels threatening because you have made it feel threatening through your rejection and denial. The more you refuse to acknowledge these aspects of yourself, the more menacing they become in your dreams. The nightmare is your psyche's way of insisting that you pay attention to these disowned parts, that you recognize them as part of who you are. Consider someone who has been taught that anger is unacceptable, that good people do not feel anger, that expressing anger is dangerous or shameful. This person may spend years suppressing any expression of anger, denying that they feel anger, trying to be consistently pleasant and accommodating. During this time, they may have nightmares of a violent, angry figure attacking them or pursuing them. The figure is not external. It is their own disowned anger, their own suppressed rage, appearing in the nightmare as something threatening because they have made it feel threatening through their rejection. Or consider someone who has been taught that sexuality is shameful, that sexual desire is dirty or wrong. This person may suppress any acknowledgement of their own sexuality, may feel shame about their own body and desires. In their nightmares, they may encounter a figure that is sexually threatening, that is pursuing them with sexual intent, that is invading their boundaries. The figure is not external. It is their own disowned sexuality, appearing as threatening because they have made it feel threatening through shame and denial. The shadow can also contain qualities that are not inherently negative, but that you have been taught to reject. Perhaps you have been taught that ambition is selfish, that wanting things for yourself is wrong, that you should always put others first. You suppress your own ambition and desires. In your nightmares, you may encounter a figure that is selfish, that is taking things, that is pursuing its own desires without regard for others. The figure is your own disowned ambition and desire, appearing as threatening because you have rejected these qualities as unacceptable. The profound truth is that the threatening figure in your nightmare is not your enemy. It is you. It is the parts of yourself that you have rejected. And the only way to stop being terrorized by this figure is to stop rejecting it. You must turn and face the figure. You must recognize it as part of yourself. You must begin the process of integrating these disowned aspects back into your sense of self. This integration is not about acting out the impulses or desires that the shadow contains. It is about acknowledging that you have these impulses, these desires, these qualities, and that having them does not make you a bad person. A person can feel anger and choose not to act destructively. A person can feel sexual desire and choose how to express it ethically. A person can feel ambition and choose how to pursue it in ways that align with their values. The shadow becomes dangerous only when it is denied and suppressed. When it is acknowledged and integrated, it becomes a source of authentic power. When you begin to acknowledge your shadow, when you stop rejecting these disowned parts of yourself, something remarkable happens. The threatening figure in your nightmares begins to transform. It may still appear, but it is no longer attacking. It may begin to communicate with you. It may reveal itself as containing gifts, as containing energy and power that you need. The nightmare transforms when you stop running from your shadow and instead turn to face it with curiosity and compassion. From nightmare to message, the integration process. The journey from experiencing a nightmare as pure terror to extracting meaning and wisdom from it requires intentional work. It is not something that happens automatically, but the process is straightforward and it can be profoundly transformative. The first step is to establish a practice of working with your nightmares, of taking them seriously, of treating them as communications rather than disturbances. Begin by keeping a dream journal. This practice alone can be remarkably powerful. Upon waking, before you do anything else, write down your nightmare. Write whatever you remember, even if it is fragmented or does not make complete logical sense. Write the emotions you felt. Write the images. Write the sensations. Do not censor yourself. Do not try to make it make sense. Just record what you remember as accurately and vividly as you can. The act of writing is itself transformative. It moves the nightmare from the realm of pure emotion and sensation into the realm of language and narrative. It helps your conscious mind engage with the nightmare content in a different way. It creates distance and perspective. And it preserves the nightmare so that you can return to it later, so that you can continue to extract meaning from it over time. After you have written the nightmare, take some time to sit with it. Do not immediately try to interpret it or to figure out what it means. Just let it be. Let the emotions settle. Notice what arises when you sit with the nightmare without judgment or fear. Sometimes insights come quickly. Sometimes they come over days or weeks as you continue to sit with the nightmare. Then, ask yourself the diagnostic questions. If the nightmare was falling, ask, where in my waking life do I feel that I am losing control? Where have I lost my footing? What transition am I resisting? If the nightmare was being chased, ask, what am I running from? What truth am I avoiding? What decision am I dreading? If the nightmare involved a threatening figure, ask, what aspects of myself am I rejecting? What impulses or qualities am I refusing to acknowledge? These questions are not meant to be answered quickly or definitively. They are meant to open inquiry. They are meant to help you explore what your nightmare is attempting to communicate. Sit with the questions. Journal about them. See what emerges when you genuinely allow yourself to explore what the nightmare is revealing. It can also be helpful to engage with the nightmare through dialogue. Imagine the nightmare figure, or the situation, or the emotion that the nightmare expressed. Imagine having a conversation with it. What would you want to say to the nightmare? What would you want to ask it? What would it want to say to you? Write this dialogue. Let it be imaginative and free. This dialogue can reveal insights that purely analytical thinking might miss. Some people find it helpful to draw or paint the nightmare. The visual expression can access different parts of the mind than words alone. You do not need to be an artist. You are not trying to create something beautiful. You are simply trying to externalize the nightmare in a different medium, to engage with it in a different way. Another powerful practice is to re-enter the nightmare consciously, to revisit it in a meditative state, rather than experiencing it passively during sleep. This requires some practice, but it can be remarkably transformative. In a relaxed state, allow yourself to revisit the nightmare. But this time you are present and aware. You can choose how to respond. You can speak to the threatening figure. You can choose a different action. You can explore the nightmare landscape with curiosity rather than fear. This conscious re-entry transforms the nightmare from something that happens to you into something that you engage with actively. The goal of all of this work is not to eliminate nightmares. The goal is to transform your relationship with them, to extract the wisdom they contain, to integrate the messages they are trying to communicate. I'd like to know, where are you listening from, and what time is it there? These details help me understand the context in which you are receiving this exploration, and they help me feel connected to you as a fellow traveler in this journey of understanding your inner world. The healing power of lucid awareness. There exists a remarkable phenomenon that occurs when you become aware while dreaming that you are dreaming. This state is called lucid dreaming. In a lucid dream, you recognize that the dream is not reality, that the threat is not literal, that you are safe in your bed. And in that recognition, something profound shifts. The nightmare loses its power to overwhelm you. The fear recedes. You find yourself able to engage with the nightmare content from a position of awareness and choice, rather than from a position of helplessness and terror. Developing lucid awareness in nightmares is a skill that can be learned. It does not happen automatically, and it requires practice and intention. But for people who have mastered this skill, it can be transformative. A nightmare that used to wake you in terror can become an opportunity for dialogue with your unconscious mind. A threatening figure can become a teacher. A terrifying situation can become a space for exploration and discovery. The first step in developing lucid awareness is to increase your awareness of dreams in general. Throughout the day, pause periodically and ask yourself, am I dreaming right now? Look around, test reality. This simple practice, done regularly, begins to create a habit of questioning whether you are dreaming. And when you are actually dreaming, when you are in a nightmare, this habit of questioning may activate. You may suddenly realize that you are dreaming, and in that moment of recognition, everything changes. Another practice that can increase lucid dreaming is to set an intention before sleep. As you are falling asleep, repeat to yourself, tonight I will recognize that I am dreaming. I will become aware within my dreams. Repeat this intention gently and persistently. Do not force it. Just hold it lightly as you drift towards sleep. Over time, this intention can increase the likelihood that you will become lucid within a dream. When you do become lucid within a nightmare, the first instinct is often to wake up, to escape the nightmare by returning to waking consciousness. This is understandable, but if you can resist this instinct, if you can stay present in the lucid dream, remarkable things become possible. You can speak to the threatening figure. You can ask it what it wants, what it is trying to communicate. You can explore the nightmare landscape with curiosity. You can even choose to transform the nightmare. You can change the setting, change the situation, change the outcome. Some people find that when they become lucid in a nightmare, when they realize that the threat is not real, the threat actually dissolves. The nightmare figure may simply disappear. The dangerous situation may transform into something neutral or even beautiful. This happens because the nightmare was powered by your belief in its reality. Once you recognize that it is a dream, the nightmare loses its grip. But even more powerful is the dialogue that can occur. If you become lucid and encounter a threatening figure, you can ask the figure, what do you want from me? What are you trying to communicate? Why are you pursuing me? And sometimes, remarkably, the figure will answer. It will communicate something that you need to hear. It will reveal that it is not actually your enemy, but rather a part of yourself that is trying to get your attention. Developing lucid dreaming skills requires patience and persistence. Most people do not develop the ability immediately. It may take weeks or months of practice before you experience your first lucid dream, but the investment is worthwhile. Once you develop the ability to become aware within your nightmares, you have fundamentally changed your relationship with them. You are no longer a passive victim of your nightmares, you are an active participant. You are an explorer of your own inner world. You are in dialogue with the deepest parts of yourself. The practice of lucid dreaming is not about controlling your dreams or about escaping them. It is about developing the capacity to be present with what arises, to engage with it consciously, to extract wisdom from it. It is about recognizing that even your nightmares are part of your own mind, that nothing in your dreams is foreign to you, that everything that appears in your dreams is ultimately you, expressing something that needs expression and acknowledgement. Listening to your inner voice, we have journeyed together through the landscape of nightmares, exploring the many languages that your inner self speaks when you sleep. We have examined the neurobiology that makes nightmares possible, the emotional content that drives them, the specific images and situations that recur across human experience. We have discovered that nightmares are not random, not meaningless, not punishments. They are communications. They are your deepest self attempting to reach your conscious mind with information that matters. The nightmare about falling is your psyche saying that you are facing loss of control, that you are resisting change, that you need to develop trust in yourself and in the process of transformation. The nightmare about being chased is your inner voice insisting that you stop running from what you need to face, that avoidance is not a sustainable strategy, that the only way forward is through confronting what frightens you. The nightmare about drowning is your emotional depths demanding recognition, insisting that you acknowledge the feelings you have been suppressing, that you allow yourself to be moved by emotion rather than trying to control it. The nightmare about death is your psyche honoring the significance of transformations you're undergoing, helping you integrate the losses that are part of growth and change. The nightmare about losing control of your body is your consciousness expressing anxiety about aging, about powerlessness, about the fragility of the physical form. The nightmare about a threatening figure is your shadow self insisting that you recognize and integrate the parts of yourself that you have rejected. All of these nightmares, while uncomfortable, are serving you. They are serving you by refusing to let important things be forgotten or ignored. They are serving you by bringing emotional truth into vivid, undeniable form. They are serving you by forcing you to pay attention to what matters. They are serving you by inviting you into deeper relationship with yourself, deeper understanding of your own psyche, deeper integration of all the parts of who you are. The work of understanding your nightmares is the work of self-knowledge. It is the work of becoming more fully yourself, of integrating the shadow, of acknowledging the emotions that you have been suppressing, of accepting the transformations that you are undergoing. This work is not easy. It requires courage to look at the things that frighten you. It requires vulnerability to acknowledge the emotions that you have been trying to control. It requires humility to recognize that the threatening figures in your nightmares are parts of yourself that you have been rejecting. But this work is also profoundly rewarding. As you develop the capacity to listen to your nightmares, as you begin to extract the wisdom they contain, as you integrate the messages they are trying to communicate, something shifts in your inner landscape. The nightmares do not necessarily disappear, but they transform. They become less terrifying. They become more informative. They become allies rather than enemies. They become part of the essential work of self-knowledge and self-integration. Your inner voice speaks constantly. It speaks through your intuition, through your emotions, through your body sensations, through your dreams. When you are awake, it is easy to ignore this inner voice, to override it with your rational mind, to dismiss it as irrational or unreliable. But when you sleep, when your rational mind quiets, when your defenses lower, the inner voice becomes louder, more insistent, more vivid. Your nightmares are part of this voice. They are the parts of your inner voice that are most desperate to be heard. To listen to your inner voice is to honor yourself. It is to acknowledge that you contain wisdom that your conscious mind has not fully recognized. It is to trust that the messages your dreams are bringing you, even when they are frightening, are meant for your well-being. It is to develop compassion for yourself, for all the parts of yourself even the parts that frighten you. As you continue forward, I encourage you to approach your nightmares with curiosity rather than fear. When you wake from a nightmare, before you try to forget it, pause, sit with it, journal about it, ask yourself what it is trying to communicate. Engage with it. Over time, you will develop a new relationship with your nightmares. You will recognize them as part of your path toward wholeness, as invitations to self-knowledge, as messengers from your own deepest self. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the landscape of nightmares, into the hidden messages of your inner world. If this exploration has brought you greater understanding, greater compassion for yourself, greater appreciation for the wisdom that your nightmares contain, I would deeply appreciate a like and a subscription to Relaxing Science. Your engagement helps us continue to bring content that honors both the science of the mind and the poetry of human experience. Also, please share with us. What nightmares have you experienced? What have you learned from them? What messages have they brought you? Your stories matter. Your experiences matter. And sharing them can help others recognize that they are not alone in their nightmares, that the messages their dreams are bringing them are part of the shared human experience of growth, transformation, and self-discovery. As you move forward into your nights, into your dreams, into the conversations between your waking self and your dreaming self, remember that you are never alone in this journey. Your nightmares are part of your path toward greater wholeness, toward deeper self-knowledge, toward more authentic living. Listen to them, learn from them, integrate their wisdom, and trust that in doing so you are honoring the most important relationship you will ever have, the relationship with yourself. We welcome you back anytime you wish to explore the mysteries of your inner world, to deepen your understanding of your dreams, to continue the conversation with your own deepest self. Until then, rest well, sleep deeply, and listen carefully to the messages that come in the night. Total.